Tonight, abortion in America 2 years out.
For anyone hoping that the 2022 Dobbs decision would be the last word, it has not turned out that way.
What's changed in the fight for life since the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade? Plus, as his defense minister meets with Secretary Blinken in Washington, Prime Minister Netanyahu vows to continue Israel's war against Hamas. And
Joe Biden doesn't have a clue. Now we're going to watch. Is anybody going to watch the debate?
Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal.
As debate night draws near, the latest on the 2024 race for the White House. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Two years after the fall of Roe v. Wade, and the battle over abortion is far from over. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. From our studio in Washington, I'm Caitlin Burke. Today marks the second anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The decision removed federal protections for abortion, and now 21 states have laws restricting the procedure. It's a major issue in the 2024 election. Democrats aiming to enshrine abortion on the federal level, and Politico reports that a coalition of pro-choice groups are investing $100 million to make it happen. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump says it should be left to the states.
If we have the trifecta, the House, the Senate, and the White House, then we are going to make Roe versus Wade law of the land again.
Thanks to these justices, we have also achieved what the pro-life movement fought to get for 49 years, and we've gotten abortion out of the federal government and back to the states.
Trump addressed the Faith and Freedom Coalition over the weekend, where he pledged to protect pro-lifers against unfair prosecution by the Biden Justice Department. He cited the case of Paulette Harlow, a 75-year-old woman in poor health who was sentenced to 24 months in prison. She was convicted under the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act during a protest outside an abortion clinic. Joining me now is Aaron Hawley, Vice President of the Center for Life at Alliance Defending Freedom and co-counsel in the Dobbs case. Aaron, 2 years out from that Dobbs decision, how have we seen states respond?
You know, I think one of the most heartening things that we have seen in the states is that every single state that protects life in a way that would have been impermissible under Roe has also expanded, sometimes to the tune of tens of millions of dollars, protections as well as resources for pregnant moms and new moms. We see these pro-life states really stepping up to empower women, to offer them real choices. And we know from surveys that many, if not most women who choose abortion say they would have chosen differently. They would have chosen to parent if their circumstances were different. And we see these pro-life states really making efforts and taking strides in that direction to offer women real choice.
While states are stepping up, according to Lifeway Research, despite a consensus 2 years ago that churches should do more to support women who have unwanted pregnancies, today a majority of churches still aren't involved with a local pregnancy center. Given all the states that now have laws restricting abortion, what kind of pressure does that put on these centers?
You know, the centers do amazing work. We hear testimonies day in and day out at Alliance Defending Freedom, where I work, about women whose lives have been dramatically altered because they went to a pregnancy care center instead of an abortion clinic, or because maybe they went to a pregnancy center after they went to an abortion clinic, even after they took the first abortion drug, and yet a pregnancy care center was able to save their child's life. So there's no question these pregnancy resource centers are providing crucial life-saving work. And you're absolutely right. Churches, individuals, everyone who believes in the value of unborn life needs to get behind these centers and just show America that we value every life, no matter how small or how vulnerable.
You mentioned the abortion drug. The Supreme Court heard another abortion case this year looking into restricting the use of mifepristone, that abortion pill. You represented a group of pro-life doctors who say it's a danger to women, and the justices rejected that lawsuit. What do you think the ramifications of that decision will be?
Well, something that is important to recognize is that the justices dismissed the case on basically a legal technicality. They said that our pro-life doctors that we represent did not have standing to bring the lawsuit. So they in no way suggested or endorsed FDA's actions here. We maintain that the FDA should and will be held accountable, especially for its actions in 2021. In that year, the FDA took away the last remaining safeguard on the abortion drug, a drug the administration admits is high risk. Roughly 1 in 25 women who take that drug end up in the emergency room, and yet the administration took away the last remaining doctor's visit. That visit was the only opportunity to screen for things like ectopic pregnancy and to accurately assess gestational age. So we think the FDA will still have its day in court.
All right, Erin Hawley with Alliance Defending Freedom, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Tensions continue to escalate between the U.S. and Israel. Over the weekend, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterating his accusation that the White House is withholding weapons, and for the first time indicating the intensive phase of the war is nearing the end. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener joins me now with more. Tara, Netanyahu's comments come at a sensitive time. Is a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel still on the table?
It's hard to say, Caitlin, because over the weekend, Netanyahu has doubts on the possibility of this ceasefire. This as Israeli officials here at Washington, they are here now lobbying for heavy ammunition. The two sides have exchanged airstrikes and rocket attacks for 8 months now. In an interview on Israeli TV, Netanyahu said that the military's focus will now shift to Israel's border with Lebanon, anticipating a fiercer clash with Hezbollah, the powerful Iranian-backed group. Tensions between Netanyahu and the White House are intensifying. Meantime, the Israeli leader repeating his claim that the U.S. has reduced weapons shipments in recent months and adding his decision to make it public is due to lack of progress behind closed doors. The Biden administration admits it suspended a shipment of bombs over concerns they'd be used for an offensive, but insists the U.S. has not deliberately slowed other shipments. The administration also says it will no longer respond to Netanyahu's political statements. Israel's defense chief is in Washington today discussing the next phase of the war and escalating hostilities on the border with Lebanon.
Number one, our ongoing commitment to Israel's security. Number two, the importance of Israel developing robust, realistic plans for the day after the conflict. He's going to emphasize the need to avoid further escalation of the conflict. And then he will, as always, emphasize the need to improve humanitarian access.
Meanwhile, Netanyahu says he is open to a partial pause and a hostage deal, but that the war will not end until Hamas no longer controls Gaza. Caitlin.
Thanks, Tara. Islamic militants carried out coordinated attacks against churches and a synagogue in southern Russia. At least 15 police officers and 4 civilians, including an Orthodox priest, died in the attacks. It happened in the southern Russian Republic of Dagestan. According to Russian officials, the terrorists attacked 2 synagogues, 2 churches, and a police station in 2 cities. One synagogue was set on fire when the militants, using Molotov cocktails, stormed the holy place before evening prayers. They also killed a Russian Orthodox priest, reportedly slitting his throat. Officials say 6 militants were killed. Dagestan is a mostly Muslim region with a history of Islamic radicalism. Here in the U.S., no relief for more than 100 million Americans as a heat wave stretches from coast to coast. Baltimore hit 101 degrees over the weekend, the highest temperature the city has seen in more than a decade. And on Sunday here in Washington, D.C., we tied our record high of 98 degrees. But those temps are mild compared to places like Las Vegas, where the daily high is expected to hover around 110 for the next 7 days. The heat is fueling torrential rainstorms in the Midwest. A state of emergency declared in Iowa after floodwaters forced evacuations in part of the state. Up next, countdown to debate night, the latest on the battle for the White House when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. While neither party has held their convention to officially nominate their candidate, both Donald Trump and Joe Biden are preparing to take the stage Thursday for the first debate of the 2024 presidential election. According to a recent NPR-PBS Marist poll, 61% of Americans say they plan to tune in. That same poll shows just how divided voters are ahead of debate night, both the current and former president polling at 49%. Only 2% of American voters say they're undecided on who they'll choose come November. Both men hope to win some of those undecideds over during CNN's debate. Unlike previous years, Thursday's 90-minute event won't have a live audience, and both campaigns have agreed to mute microphones when speaking out of turn. For more on that, let's bring in Dr. Mark Caleb Smith, director of the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University. Dr. Smith, what can we expect to see on the debate stage Thursday, and what should voters be looking out for?
Yeah, it's always interesting because incumbents often struggle in the first debate, and so Joe Biden might have a difficult time. You know, we think back to Barack Obama. He struggled in that first debate against Mitt Romney, for example, all the way back to Ronald Reagan, who struggled in his first debate against Walter Mondale. And so maybe Joe Biden's been very busy. Maybe he's been dedicated to other things. But maybe we'll expect to see him struggle. So his amount of preparation, I think, will matter quite a bit. And I think Donald Trump and how he decides to carry out this process will be interesting as well. Will he be really trying to appeal to undecided voters, or will he be trying to do something else?
As we mentioned, the format of this debate will be different. There will not be a live audience. How do you believe that will factor into both candidates' strategies?
You know, I think there's a significant chance that it will hurt former President Trump quite a bit. He's used to working with an audience. I think that's one of the things that he does well at his rallies. He feeds off of that energy, I think. I could see him actually getting frustrated without an audience there for feedback. And I'm sure that's one of the major concessions the Biden campaign got out of the Trump administration.
How high would you say the stakes are for both candidates? Could this debate actually change the momentum of the election?
You know, if I go with the social science evidence, the evidence suggests that debates really don't have all that much of an effect. What they typically do is they confirm our prior beliefs about the candidates. And so if you have a tendency to vote for Donald Trump, there's a good chance that no matter what happens in the debate, you'll still do that. Same thing's true for Mr. Biden, I think. So very unlikely, I think, that it has a significant effect. But these are also two older candidates, maybe a little bit past their prime. If one of them struggles mightily on that night, then it could change the direction of the race.
Trump and Biden are tied in the polls. What do you think we need to hear from each candidate to win over those undecided voters that we mentioned?
You know, I think what you're likely to see is both of them trying to prove the unfitness of their rival. So Donald Trump's going to focus on Joe Biden and his age, I think, try to argue that he's past his prime and really unable to carry out the duties of the presidency. Joe Biden is going to make a pretty straightforward argument, I suppose, about Donald Trump and his fitness for the White House. He's going to talk about January 6th. He's going to talk about 2 impeachments and other things as well, and just say that, you know, Donald Trump's not worth the risk. And so I think, interestingly, these two men won't be making a lot of arguments on their own behalf. They will be making a lot of arguments against the other person.
What are some of the hot topics that you think will definitely be covered during this debate?
I suspect immigration will be probably the most important issue that they touch upon. It's certainly filtered up into the polling when we look at what people are most interested in. The economy is always at the top, especially right now. We've had a little bit of a struggling economy for the past couple of years. And so I suspect those will be near the top. But as we normally see, they will turn the question to whatever they want to talk about the most. And so even if the question's about immigration, it will probably turn into an issue of whether or not the other person's fit for office.
All right, Dr. Mark Caleb Smith, thanks for your analysis as always.
Thank you.
Republicans shift their stance on abortion, but will it be enough to win over voters in November? That story and more when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. Republicans are dead set on taking back both the presidency and the Senate this fall. And with most Americans expressing support for abortion, some GOP leaders are softening their tone on the issue. CBN's chief political analyst David Brody shows us what's behind their strategy.
Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Republicans have found themselves on defense politically. That's because Democrats have weaponized the issue in an attempt to scare voters about extreme GOP policies in a post-Roe world.
We're almost there. You're gonna make it.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Miss, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle, take a pregnancy test.
With ads like that, the Biden campaign hopes to reach suburban and independent female voters this fall. Former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard tells CBN News her former colleagues are playing dirty.
We're already seeing the kind of fear-mongering that the Democrat elite are doing to try to scare women into voting for Joe Biden based on these insane ideas that have and ads that are not rooted in reality in any way, shape, or form. We will see if people fall for that fear-mongering that Democrats are pushing forward.
Regardless of the tactics, Republicans understand they have a potential problem on their hands. 6 in 10 independents are unhappy that Roe was overturned. In 6 key battleground states, 11% of voters named abortion as the most important issue, nearly the same percentage as immigration. Overall, 63% of Americans say abortion should be legal in all or most cases. And when it comes to moderate Republicans, that number reaches 67%. These stats have forced some Republican candidates to slightly shift their stance on the issue. Meredith McGraw is a reporter for Politico.
We have seen how the Republican Party has really struggled with how to articulate its position on abortion.
For example, Arizona Senate candidate Kari Lake once called abortion the ultimate sin, and she supported an Arizona law that called for prison time for anyone involved performing an abortion. This is Lake from 2 years ago.
We have a great law on the books right now. If that happens, we will be a state where we will not be taking the lives of our unborn anymore.
As the saying goes, that was then, this is now.
This total ban on abortion that the Arizona Supreme Court just ruled on is out of line with where the people of this state are.
In Washington state, former Congressman Dave Reichart voted against federal funding of abortion and carried a 100% rating with National Right to Life. Now, running for governor, he's softening his tone.
I want you to know where I stand on abortion. As governor, I will not change Washington law on this issue because I do not believe any politician, regardless of personal belief, has the right to make that decision for any woman.
On the national level, pro-life groups aren't happy with Senate leaders like Mitch McConnell and John Cornyn, who had consistently backed national limits on abortion. Now, with Roe v. Wade out of the picture, they maintain the decision should be left up to the states. Former President Trump feels the same way and also calls for exceptions to abortion. For one recent pro-life gathering, he recorded a 2-minute video message without speaking on abortion at all and didn't even use the word.
We have to defend religious liberty, free speech, innocent life, and the heritage and tradition that built America into the greatest nation in the history of the world.
For Trump, that strategy makes sense, since he believes abortion politics hurt the GOP in 2022 and could do so again.
It really hurt the Republicans. They didn't know how to talk about the issue, and now I think they're learning how to talk about it.
On Capitol Hill, he told congressional Republicans to follow their heart on abortion, but to do it in a way that makes sense to voters.
It seems to me, just being a political observer, that he's an art of the deal type of guy. He understands that it's not a, quote, winning issue for Republicans right now, and so why double down? And it just seems like that's kind of the strategy at this point.
I think Donald Trump is really trying to find some middle ground here and give himself some wiggle room so that he can appeal to the evangelical voters who have continued to be loyal to him over the years, but also make appeals to more moderate voters who have a different position when it comes to abortion.
While he's considered by some evangelicals and pro-life leaders as the most pro-life president, 2024 is a new environment. No pro-life ballot initiatives have won since Roe was overturned, even in red states like Kansas. Abortion measures will also most likely be on the ballot this time around in the key swing states of Nevada and Arizona. So what's the solution for Trump and the GOP? Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders tells CBN News it's time to use a strategy of both reason and offense.
And I think we have to talk about it in ways that people understand, that makes it relevant. Quit going on defense. We so often apologize for our position when, frankly, we're on the right side here. I never want to apologize for defending one of the most vulnerable populations in our country, and that is the unborn. And so I'm not going to do that. And I think that the more that we go on offense instead of cowering and allowing the left to define our position and make us out to be the bad guy, the better off we're going to be.
That game plan seems to be in line with party insiders.
Something I keep hearing from Republican strategists is they felt like in 2022, Republicans didn't go on offense enough when it came to the issue of abortion. They felt like in 2022, that should have been a lesson learned and that more should be done in 2024 to go on offense with Democrats.
Right now, though, Republicans are back on their heels, and if they don't move from that position, it could cost them dearly in 2024. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, a social media account dedicated to gratitude. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a popular TikToker is making his gratitude public. He's known to millions on social media as the I'm Grateful guy. His actual name is David, and the father of 3 and college administrator in Kentucky started posting on social media last year during a rough season of life. He shared tidbits from his day when he recalled something he's grateful for, no matter how random.
Today I'm grateful for air conditioning because it is hot and humid today.
David says it's morphed from something he did to encourage himself to connecting with and inspiring people all over the world. That's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.